A millionaire arrives at his luxurious mansion and encounters the most unexpected scene, his daughter rummaging through the trash. The shock paralyzes him when he realizes she's holding a piece of old bread as if it were a treasure. But the revelation behind this gesture exposes dark secrets that were hidden within his own house. And faced with the truth, he collapses in tears, beginning the most painful and transformative struggle of his life. The persistent rain that had been falling for 3 days over Seattle had finally subsided, leaving behind a glistening cityscape visible from the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ethan Parker's penthouse office. At 42, Ethan had everything most people could only dream of. Founder and CEO of Quantum Sphere Technologies, a fortune estimated at over $4 billion, and a reputation as one of the most brilliant minds in quantum computing. His assistant, Meredith, placed a steaming cup of coffee on his desk, interrupting his thoughts. "Mr. Parker, the board is waiting in the conference room. They've been there for 20 minutes. Ethan didn't look up from the complex algorithm displayed on his dual monitors. "Tell them I need 10 more minutes. I'm finalizing the quantum encryption protocol we'll be presenting." "Sir, with all due respect, this is the 3rd time I've come to remind you. The Tokyo investors are also on the video call." Ethan finally glanced at his watch and sighed. Another day, another meeting that would stretch into the night. He hadn't been home before midnight in weeks. The impending merger with Nextech Industries consumed every waking hour. A deal that would revolutionize cybersecurity and cement his company's position as an industry leader for decades to come. "Right, I'm coming." He grabbed his tablet and followed Meredith through the sleek corridors of the headquarters he'd designed himself, a testament to his vision of the future. Clean lines, transparent surfaces, and ambient technology that responded to presence rather than touch. 4 hours later, as the Seattle skyline transformed into a tapestry of lights against the darkening sky, Ethan finally emerged from the conference room. The negotiations had been successful but exhausting. He dismissed his driver and decided to take his Tesla home himself, needing the rare moment of solitude. The drive to his Medina estate on the shores of Lake Washington took him past the illuminated campus of his corporate rival. Ethan smiled to himself. Soon their technology would be incorporated into his empire. The merger would be announced next week, sending stocks soaring and changing the landscape of quantum computing forever. As he pulled through the ornate gates of his property, the mansion came into view, a modern architectural marvel of glass, stone, and sustainable materials that had been featured in numerous design magazines. The house was mostly dark, save for a few ambient lights and the glow from the kitchen wing. Ethan entered through the garage, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space that housed his collection of rare vehicles. The house was quiet, too quiet for a place where a 7-year-old lived. Sophia should have been in bed by now, but usually there was some trace of her presence, a forgotten toy, the lingering sound of a bedtime story, or the scent of her favorite strawberry shampoo in the air. "Vanessa," he called out for his wife as he set his briefcase down in the foyer. No answer. Ethan loosened his tie as he moved through the house. He checked his watch, 11:47 p.m. Vanessa had probably retired to her wing of the mansion. Their relationship had grown increasingly distant over the past year, a fact he acknowledged but hadn't found time to address. He headed toward the kitchen, intent on finding something to eat before reviewing more documents. The merger wouldn't finalize itself, and there were still countless details requiring his attention. As he approached, he heard a faint sound, something between a shuffle and a rustle. Ethan paused, then quietly moved forward. The sounds came from the pantry adjacent to the kitchen. He turned on the small light above the island counter, casting enough illumination to see without flooding the space with brightness. What he saw next would forever be etched in his memory. Kneeling on the floor beside the trash bin was Sophia, his daughter, still in her school uniform from earlier that day. Her small hands, dirty from rummaging through garbage, clutched a half-eaten piece of bread. Her usually neatly braided blonde hair hung in tangled strands around her too thin face. When she saw him, her blue eyes, so much like her late mother's, widened with fear. "Sophia?" Ethan's voice cracked as he moved toward her. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" The little girl quickly hid the bread behind her back, her lower lip trembling. "I'm sorry, Daddy, I didn't mean to make a mess." Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Ethan knelt beside her, noticing how she instinctively flinched away from him. "Why are you going through the trash? Are you hungry?" Sophia hesitated, her eyes darting toward the doorway as if afraid someone might appear. "Mommy Vanessa said I couldn't have dinner because I spilled juice on the new carpet." She revealed the piece of bread, now clutched protectively against her chest. "She said bad girls don't deserve grown-up food." Ethan felt as if all the air had been sucked from his lungs. He gently touched Sophia's shoulder, alarmed at how prominently her collarbones protruded beneath her thin cotton shirt. "When did you eat last, Soph?" Her small forehead wrinkled in concentration. "Lunch yesterday, I think." "Before that?" "I'm not sure." Something cold and terrible took root in Ethan's chest. His mind raced back over the past months, his increasing absences, the subtle changes in Sophia's behavior, the way she'd grown quieter during his rare appearances at home. Vanessa's insistence that Sophia was just going through a phase, and her complaints about the child's difficult behavior. "Sophia, has this happened before? Mommy Vanessa not giving you dinner?" The little girl's eyes filled with tears. "Sometimes, when I'm not good enough." She lowered her voice to a whisper. "She says you'll send me away if you know how bad I am, that you don't have time for naughty children." Ethan's hands began to shake. He gathered his daughter into his arms, feeling her initial stiffness before she cautiously relaxed against him. She was lighter than he remembered, much lighter. How long had it been since he'd held her? Truly paid attention? "Listen to me," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You are not bad. You are perfect, and I would never ever send you away. Do you understand?" Sophia looked up at him, a glimmer of hope breaking through her fear. "Promise?" "I promise." Ethan stood, still holding her. "Let's get you something proper to eat, and then you can tell me everything." As he carried her toward the kitchen, a movement caught his eye. In the shadowed hallway stood Vanessa, her elegant silhouette unmistakable. She stepped into the light, her designer loungewear impeccable. Not a strand of her dark hair out of place despite the late hour. "Ethan, you're home early." Her voice was honey smooth, but her eyes flickered nervously between him and Sophia. "I was just coming to check on a noise I heard." The practiced smile, the casual tone. How many times had he accepted these at face value? How many warning signs had he missed while chasing his ambitions? "We need to talk," he said, his voice eerily calm despite the storm brewing inside him. "But first I'm going to feed my daughter." Something shifted in Vanessa's perfect composure, a momentary crack in the facade that revealed something cold and calculating beneath. Then it was gone, replaced by a concerned frown. Sophia should be in bed. She's being dramatic again, seeking attention. Vanessa stepped forward, arms outstretched. "Come on, sweetie, Mommy will take you upstairs." Sophia's fingers dug into Ethan's shirt, her entire body tensing. The reaction told him everything he needed to know. "Not tonight," he said, moving past Vanessa toward the kitchen. "Not ever again." As Ethan set Sophia gently on a counter stool and began preparing a simple sandwich, he made a silent vow. Everything was about to change. His company, the merger, the billions at stake. None of it mattered compared to the small, frightened child watching his every move with wary hope. The world Ethan had built was crumbling, but from its ruins, something far more important would rise. Morning light streamed through the guest bedroom windows, where Ethan had stayed with Sophia. He hadn't slept, his mind racing with horrific possibilities as he watched his daughter's fitful slumber. After she'd eaten 3 sandwiches and a bowl of fruit with alarming speed, she'd fallen asleep clutching his hand. His phone vibrated with messages from the office. The merger team needed decisions. The board wanted updates. For the first time in his career, Ethan ignored them all. Instead, he made a different call. "Dr. Reynolds? It's Ethan Parker. I need you to come to my home immediately. It's an emergency concerning my daughter." Within the hour, Dr. Sarah Reynolds, Sophia's pediatrician since birth, arrived. As she examined the girl, Ethan waited anxiously in the adjoining sitting room, keeping the door open to maintain visual contact. "Mr. Parker?" Vanessa's voice came from behind him. She was impeccably dressed in a cream-colored suit, her makeup flawless despite the early hour. "There are 2 board members on the phone. They say it's urgent regarding the next tech negotiations." "Not now," Ethan said without turning. Vanessa's perfectly manicured hand touched his shoulder. "Darling, I know you're concerned, but children get stomach bugs all the time. Sophia is just feeling a little under the weather. I've been trying to tell you she's been refusing meals lately." Ethan shrugged off her touch. "Did you know she's lost 11 pounds since her last checkup 6 months ago?" 11 pounds, Vanessa. That's nearly 20% of her body weight." Vanessa's expression shifted momentarily before she composed herself. "Children go through growth phases. I'm sure Dr. Reynolds will confirm." "Mr. Parker." Dr. Reynolds appeared in the doorway, her face grave. "May I speak with you privately?" Vanessa immediately stepped forward. "As Sophia's mother, I should—" "Stepmother," Ethan corrected sharply. "And no, this conversation will be between Dr. Reynolds and myself." He followed the doctor into his home office, closing the door firmly behind them. Dr. Reynolds didn't mince words. "Ethan, Sophia is severely undernourished. There are signs of dehydration, vitamin deficiencies, and what appears to be stress-induced hair loss. I also noted several bruises in various stages of healing." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. "Bruises?" "On her upper arms and back. When I asked about them, she became visibly anxious and claimed she fell. Her physical condition, combined with her emotional state—" Dr. Reynolds hesitated. "Ethan, these are consistent with neglect and possibly physical abuse." The room seemed to tilt. "I need to report this, don't I?" "Yes," she confirmed. "But first, tell me what you know." Ethan described finding Sophia the previous night, her revelation about missed meals, and her fearful behavior around Vanessa. As he spoke, pieces began falling into place. Sophia's increasing withdrawal, Vanessa's insistence on handling all aspects of the child's care, her explanations for why Sophia couldn't attend family functions, or why she was too tired for video calls when Ethan traveled. "I've been blind," he concluded, his voice hollow. "Completely, inexcusably blind." Dr. Reynolds regarded him with clinical detachment. "What are you going to do now?" "Whatever it takes to protect my daughter." After the doctor left, Ethan locked himself in his home office and began a systematic investigation. He accessed the mansion's security system, a comprehensive network of cameras and sensors. He'd installed more for protecting his technological patents than monitoring family activities. Most of the interior cameras had been disabled months ago, at Vanessa's insistence for privacy reasons, but the server still contained archived footage. For hours, Ethan reviewed recordings, his horror mounting with each new revelation. Sophia being sent to her room without food, locked in for hours while Vanessa entertained friends downstairs. The child struggling to reach the kitchen sink for water because the refrigerator had been locked. Vanessa yanking Sophia's arm so roughly, the girl winced in pain when she accidentally interrupted a phone call. At 3 in the afternoon, as Sophia napped under the watchful eye of Dr. Reynolds' recommended nurse, Ethan made another call. "Marcus?" "It's Ethan Parker." "I need your help with something extremely sensitive." "How soon can you be here?" Marcus Chen, head of Quantum Sphere's security division and Ethan's former college roommate, arrived within 40 minutes. His expertise in digital forensics had helped the company identify numerous corporate espionage attempts over the years. "I need complete access to all communications and financial records for my household," Ethan explained after securing his office against potential eavesdropping, "particularly anything related to Vanessa or Sophia's care." Marcus raised an eyebrow, but didn't question the unusual request. "Time frame? Everything since Vanessa and I married 3 years ago." As Marcus worked, Ethan received another visitor, Angela Martinez, former household manager, whom Vanessa had abruptly fired 6 months earlier. Ethan had barely registered her departure at the time, accepting Vanessa's explanation that Angela had been caught stealing. Now, sitting across from him with obvious trepidation, Angela told a very different story. "I should have come forward sooner." "Mr. Parker," she began, hands twisting nervously in her lap. "But Mrs. Parker threatened to ruin my reputation in the industry if I said anything. She knew about my mother's medical bills." "Take your time," Ethan encouraged, recording the conversation with Angela's permission. "It started with small things," Angela continued, Mrs. Parker restricting Sophia's snacks, claiming she was getting pudgy. Then she began withholding meals as punishment for minor infractions, spilling juice, speaking too loudly. not finishing homework fast enough. Angela described increasingly controlling behavior, Vanessa monitoring Sophia's bathroom usage, limiting her water intake, claiming she was wetting the bed deliberately, isolating her from the household staff who showed her affection. The breaking point came when Sophia had that high fever last winter. Remember when you were in Tokyo for the technology summit? Mrs. Parker refused to call Dr. Reynolds, saying Sophia was faking illness for attention. The child's temperature reached 104 degrees before I defied orders and called the doctor myself. Mrs. Parker fired me the next day. By evening, the evidence was overwhelming. Marcus had uncovered financial records showing Vanessa spent thousands on personal luxuries, while the accounts designated for Sophia's care remained virtually untouched. Text messages to friends complained about being saddled with another woman's brat and strategized ways to send Sophia to boarding school once Ethan's company goes public. Most damning were the recovered security logs, showing Sophia's bedroom door being electronically locked from the outside, a feature of the smart home system Ethan had never authorized. "What's your plan?" Marcus asked as they reviewed the findings. "This is enough for criminal charges." Ethan stared at the mountain of evidence, his mind made up. "First, I'm getting Sophia somewhere safe. Then I'm making sure Vanessa never comes near her again." He was interrupted by a soft knock. The nurse he'd hired stood in the doorway, her expression concerned. "Mr. Parker, your wife is attempting to remove Sophia from the premises. She's called a car and is packing the child's things. She says they're going to her sister's house in Portland." Ethan bolted from his chair, Marcus close behind him. They found Vanessa in Sophia's room, angrily stuffing clothes into a small suitcase while the terrified child huddled in a corner. "What do you think you're doing?" Ethan demanded. Vanessa straightened, her composure slipping for just a moment before the familiar mask of control returned. "Sophia and I are taking a little trip, while you sort through whatever midlife crisis you're having. The board called me Ethan. They're concerned about your behavior, missing critical meetings for no reason." "No reason?" Ethan's voice was dangerously quiet. "You call systematically abusing my daughter no reason?" Something dark flashed in Vanessa's eyes. "Don't be ridiculous. Discipline isn't abuse. Sophia needs structure, which you've been too busy to provide." "Structure doesn't include starvation, Vanessa," she scoffed. "Always so dramatic. Tell your father how you refuse to eat unless you get your way, Sophia." All eyes turned to the small figure in the corner. Sophia looked from Vanessa to her father, visible terror warring with something else, a tiny spark of courage ignited by her father's unwavering presence over the past 24 hours. "I'm always hungry," she whispered. "Even when I'm good." Vanessa's face contorted with rage, the beautiful mask crumbling completely. "You ungrateful little—" "That's enough." Ethan stepped between them. "Sophia isn't going anywhere with you. Not today, not ever." "You can't stop me," Vanessa hissed. "I'm her legal guardian while you're off playing tech genius. One phone call about your mental state, the stress you've been under, and I'll have emergency custody by morning." Marcus cleared his throat from the doorway. "Actually, Mrs. Parker, given the evidence we've collected, including your attempt to remove Sophia from the home after being informed of a medical investigation, you won't be making any such calls." Vanessa's eyes darted between the men, calculation replacing anger. "Evidence? What evidence? This is absurd. Ethan, darling, you're exhausted from work. Let's discuss this rationally after." "Security will escort you to the guest house," Ethan interrupted. "You'll remain there until our attorneys arrive tomorrow morning. Your access to the main house has been revoked." "You can't be serious. This is my home." "No," Ethan said quietly. "It never was." As Vanessa was led away, her threats and protestations echoing down the hallway, Ethan knelt beside Sophia. "Is she coming back?" The little girl asked, her voice small. "No, sweetheart. She's never going to hurt you again." For the first time in months, Sophia's shoulders relaxed, and she leaned into her father's embrace. It was only the beginning of a long journey, but as Ethan held his daughter, he silently renewed his vow. Nothing, not his company, not his fortune, nothing, would ever take priority over Sophia again. Outside, rain began to fall once more over Seattle. washing away the last traces of a beautiful facade that had hidden something rotten beneath. 2 weeks later, Ethan sat in the office of Patricia Winters, one of Seattle's most respected family law attorneys. The sleek downtown high-rise offered a panoramic view of the city, but Ethan's attention was fixed solely on the documents before him. "These are serious allegations." "Ethan," Patricia said, reviewing the file compiled against Vanessa, "with the evidence you've gathered, we have a strong case for full custody and a restraining order. The security footage alone is damning." Ethan nodded, the familiar cold fury settling in his chest. Since the night he'd discovered Sophia digging through trash, his world had transformed. He'd taken an indefinite leave from Quantum Sphere, appointing his COO as interim leader. The next tech merger had been postponed, a decision that had sent shockwaves through the tech industry and temporarily tanked stock prices. None of that mattered. What mattered was the little girl now attending daily therapy sessions with Dr. Meera Patel, a child psychologist specializing in trauma. What mattered was ensuring Vanessa could never harm Sophia again. "How long will the process take?" Ethan asked. Patricia's expression was guarded. "Under normal circumstances, with this evidence, we could move quickly. However," she hesitated. "However, Vanessa has retained Lawrence Blackwell." The name landed like a stone. Blackwell was infamous in divorce and custody cases, a ruthless attorney who specialized in representing wealthy spouses seeking favorable settlements regardless of circumstances. His tactics were legendary for being both effective and utterly devoid of ethical constraints. "That complicates things," Ethan acknowledged. "It does. And there's more." Patricia slid a document across the desk. "This was filed this morning. Vanessa is seeking emergency custody of Sophia, claiming you've had a mental breakdown and are endangering the child." Ethan scanned the document, disbelief mounting with each paragraph. According to Vanessa's filing, he had become increasingly paranoid and unstable due to work pressure, was fabricating abuse allegations to cover his own neglect, and was using his wealth and influence to manipulate medical professionals into supporting his delusions. "She's trying to flip the narrative," Patricia explained unnecessarily. "Blackwell's signature move. They're painting you as a workaholic who suddenly cracked under pressure and are now projecting your guilt onto Vanessa. But the evidence will be challenged as manufactured or taken out of context. They're already arguing that the security footage was selectively edited." Ethan leaned back, running a hand through his disheveled hair. He hadn't slept properly in days, consumed with caring for Sophia and building their case. Perhaps his appearance didn't help counter Vanessa's claims. What about Angela's testimony? Dr. Reynolds' medical report? They'll say Angela was fired for legitimate reasons and is seeking revenge. As for the medical report, Patricia grimaced. Blackwell has already submitted statements from 2 child specialists questioning Dr. Reynolds' conclusions. They're suggesting Sophia's condition could be attributed to a metabolic disorder rather than neglect. The injustice was staggering. So Vanessa starves my daughter, locks her in her room, psychologically torments her, and now she's claiming I'm the unfit parent. "Welcome to high-stakes custody battles, Mr. Parker." Patricia's tone was sympathetic but firm. "Vanessa is fighting for her lifestyle. Your prenuptial agreement limits what she can claim financially, but if she secures partial custody, she maintains access to the lifestyle she's become accustomed to through child support. This isn't about money. She doesn't even care about Sophia. No, but she cares about maintaining appearances and punishing you for exposing her. This is as much about control and revenge as anything else." Ethan stared out at the Seattle skyline, mind racing. He'd built a tech empire by anticipating opponents' moves, identifying vulnerabilities, and executing flawless counter-strategies. This situation required the same analytical approach. "We need to get ahead of this narrative," he said finally. "What's our next move?" Before Patricia could answer, her assistant knocked and entered. "Say, excuse me, but you both need to see this." She handed Patricia a tablet displaying a breaking news story. The headline made Ethan's blood run cold. "Tech billionaire accused of fabricating abuse claims in custody battle." The article quoted sources close to the family describing Ethan's alleged deteriorating mental state, his obsession with work, and frequent absences from home. It portrayed Vanessa as a devoted stepmother who had tried everything to help her husband seek treatment before being forced to take action to protect Sophia. "She's gone to the press," Ethan said flatly. Patricia nodded grimly. "And this is just the beginning. Blackwell excels at media manipulation. By tomorrow, this narrative will be everywhere. Can we respond?" "Not directly. Engaging in a public battle would only feed the frenzy and potentially expose Sophia to more trauma." Patricia set down the tablet. "But we can prepare for their next move." Their strategy session was interrupted by Ethan's phone. The caller ID showed Marcus Chen. "Ethan, we have a problem," Marcus said without preamble. "Someone's trying to access Quantum Sphere's secure servers, specifically your personal files and communications." "Vanessa?" "The attempt originated from an IP address associated with Blackwell's firm. They're looking for anything they can use against you. Emails showing work prioritization over family, therapy appointments you might have had, medication prescriptions, anything to substantiate their mental instability claims." Ethan's mind raced through the implications. "Can they get in?" "Not easily, but they're being persistent and—" Marcus hesitated. "There's something else. Jessica Woods from HR just called me. She received a subpoena for all records related to your work schedule, travel history, and any employee complaints or concerns about your behavior over the past 5 years. The coordinated attack was breathtaking in its scope. Vanessa wasn't just fighting for custody. She was attempting to dismantle Ethan's entire life. "Lock everything down," Ethan instructed, "and tell Jessica to comply only with the explicit requirements of the subpoena, nothing more." After ending the call, Ethan looked to Patricia. "They're going after my company records. Standard procedure for Blackwell," she confirmed. "He'll build a case portraying you as a workaholic who neglected family responsibilities, then conveniently had a breakdown when confronted with your failures as a parent." The sheer injustice threatened to overwhelm Ethan. How could the courts even consider giving Sophia back to her abuser? The evidence was clear, the danger real. "I should never have let it get this far," he said quietly. "I should have seen what was happening." Patricia's expression softened slightly. "Guilt isn't productive, Ethan. Focus on what matters now, protecting Sophia and exposing the truth." A plan began forming in Ethan's mind. In business, when competitors fought dirty, the best response wasn't to match their tactics, but to change the battlefield entirely. "Patricia, what if we request a comprehensive evaluation by a court-appointed assessment team? Independent experts with no connection to either of us." She considered this. "It would be thorough. Psychological evaluations, home visits, interviews with everyone in Sophia's life. The court would likely grant the request, given the severity of allegations on both sides." "That's what I want. Let Vanessa manipulate the media narrative all she wants. I'm confident in what independent experts will find when they look at the actual evidence." Patricia nodded slowly. "It's a good strategy. Blackwell can't easily discredit court-appointed evaluators. But understand this will be invasive and potentially traumatic for Sophia. More traumatic than being returned to her abuser." "Point taken," Patricia made a note. "I'll file the motion immediately. In the meantime, we need to address this emergency custody hearing. It's scheduled for tomorrow morning." The next day, Ethan arrived at the King County Courthouse with Patricia and their legal team. The small courtroom was closed to the public, but several reporters lingered in the hallway, hungry for details about the high-profile case. Vanessa was already seated with Blackwell and 2 associates. She had perfected her appearance for the occasion: conservative dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a modest style. Gone were the designer clothes and statement jewelry. This Vanessa projected the image of a concerned, nurturing maternal figure. When she caught Ethan's eye, her expression conveyed nothing but sadness and concern, a masterful performance for anyone watching. Judge Helen Morales entered, her stern demeanor suggesting limited patience for theatrics. After preliminary introductions, Blackwell rose to present Vanessa's petition. "Your Honor, my client is deeply concerned for her stepdaughter's well-being. Mr. Parker has exhibited increasingly erratic behavior, culminating in baseless accusations against my client. We believe his current mental state poses a clear danger to the child." Blackwell presented affidavits from Vanessa's Friends describing Ethan's supposed decline emphasized his work schedule as evidence of neglect, and even produced text messages, carefully selected and stripped of context, showing Ethan asking Vanessa to handle Sophia's care because he was too busy. The child has been caught in the crossfire of Mr. Parker's breakdown, Blackwell concluded. We request temporary emergency custody be granted to Mrs. Parker, who has been Sophia's primary caregiver for 3 years, while Mr. Parker undergoes psychiatric evaluation. When Patricia rose to respond, her approach was methodical. Rather than attacking Vanessa directly, she focused on documented facts. Dr. Reynolds's medical report detailing Sophia's physical condition, security logs showing the child's bedroom being locked from outside, and financial records revealing the disparity between Vanessa's personal spending and expenditures for Sophia's care. Your Honor, Patricia concluded, we have filed a motion requesting a comprehensive evaluation by court-appointed experts to resolve these contradictory claims. Until that evaluation is complete, Sophia's safety must be the court's paramount concern. Judge Morales reviewed both petitions in silence before addressing the courtroom. This case presents disturbing allegations from both parties. The welfare of the child must take precedence over all other considerations. She looked directly at Vanessa and Ethan. I am denying the emergency custody request at this time. Blackwell started to object, but the judge continued. Instead, I am implementing a temporary guardianship arrangement. Sophia Parker will remain primarily in her father's physical custody, but with court-appointed supervision to ensure her well-being. Mrs. Parker will have supervised visitation rights only. Additionally, I am granting the motion for comprehensive evaluation by the family court assessment team. She fixed both parties with a stern look. Let me be absolutely clear. If either party attempts to manipulate this process or uses the media to advance their position, I will consider it contempt of court. This child has been through enough. As they exited the courtroom, Ethan felt momentarily victorious. Sophia would remain with him, protected from Vanessa's immediate influence. But the battle was far from over. In the courthouse hallway, Vanessa approached with Blackwell hovering protectively nearby. This isn't finished, she said quietly, her voice carrying none of the warmth she'd projected in the courtroom. You've underestimated me from the beginning, Ethan. Don't make that mistake again. Ethan met her gaze steadily. No, Vanessa. You're the one who underestimated what I would do to protect my daughter. As she walked away, Ethan knew the real fight was just beginning. Vanessa might have wealth, a ruthless attorney, and a talent for manipulation on her side. But he had the truth. In the end, he had to believe that would be enough. Sophia's small hand trembled in Ethan's as they walked into the family court services building. 6 weeks had passed since the initial hearing, and today marked the beginning of the court-ordered comprehensive evaluation. Remember what we talked about? Ethan knelt to his daughter's eye level in the lobby. These people just want to ask you some questions. You only have to tell the truth. Sophia nodded, her blue eyes serious. Dr. Mira says the truth is always okay, even when it's scary to say. That's right. Ethan smoothed a wayward strand of blonde hair behind her ear. In the weeks since removing Vanessa from their home, Sophia had gradually begun to regain weight. The dark circles under her eyes had faded, and her hair was growing thicker again. She smiled more frequently now, though loud noises and sudden movements still startled her. Dr. Patel had warned him that recovery wouldn't be linear. Some days were better than others. Nights remained difficult, with Sophia often waking from nightmares, calling out for him to make sure he hadn't left. Mr. Parker. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor approached them. I'm Dr. Eleanor Wright, lead psychologist for the assessment team. And you must be Sophia. The child pressed closer to Ethan's side but managed a polite hello. We're ready for Sophia's initial interview, Dr. Wright explained. The session will last about an hour. Our child advocate, Ms. Ramirez, will be present throughout. Ethan had been prepared for this moment, but the reality of leaving Sophia with strangers still filled him with anxiety. Can I wait nearby? There's a comfortable waiting area just down the hall, Dr. Wright assured him. We'll bring Sophia directly to you afterward. With a final encouraging smile for his daughter, Ethan released her hand. The quiet confidence in her expression as she followed Dr. Wright down the hallway Both broke his heart and filled it with pride. At 7 years old, she was showing more courage than many adults would in her situation. Left alone, Ethan checked his phone. The temporary leadership at Quantum Sphere was handling daily operations well, but the next tech merger remained in limbo. Investors were growing restless, and the board had called an emergency meeting for the following week. His continued absence from the company he'd built was becoming untenable. But what choice did he have? Sophia needed him present, not just physically but emotionally available. The past weeks had been a crash course in genuine parenting, learning her routines, preferences, fears, and joys. He'd been shocked to discover how little he truly knew about his own daughter's daily life. "Mr. Parker?" Patricia Winters approached, briefcase in hand. "I thought I might find you here. How was your meeting with the assessment team?" Ethan asked as they sat in the waiting area. "Thorough. They're leaving no stone unturned." She extracted a folder from her briefcase. "They've interviewed Angela Martinez, Dr. Reynolds, Sophia's teachers, even your former housekeeper from before your marriage." "And Vanessa?" "She and her legal team met with them yesterday. Blackwell is pulling out all the stops. Character witnesses. Therapists claiming Sophia's symptoms could be attributed to separation anxiety rather than abuse. Even a child development specialist suggesting her weight loss was part of a normal growth pattern." Ethan's jaw tightened. How can medical professionals support these claims when the evidence is so clear? Money and prestige are powerful motivators, Ethan, but the assessment team is experienced with high-conflict cases. They can separate genuine expert opinion from purchased testimony. They were interrupted by Ethan's phone buzzing with a text from Marcus. "Need to talk ASAP. Found something important." After arranging to call him back, Ethan returned his attention to Patricia. "What's next in the evaluation process?" "Home visits to both residences, joint interviews, and a detailed review of all evidence submitted by both sides. The team will then prepare recommendations for the court." She hesitated. "There's something else you should know. Vanessa has been building a public sympathy campaign." She showed him several news articles on her tablet. The stories portrayed Vanessa as a devoted stepmother, fighting against a powerful tech billionaire who was using his wealth to weaponize the legal system against her. One particularly sympathetic profile described her: volunteer work with children's charities, activities Ethan had never witnessed during their marriage. "She's creating a completely fictional persona," Ethan said incredulously. "It's a calculated strategy. Public opinion doesn't decide custody cases directly, but it can influence perception, including among court personnel." The door at the end of the hallway opened, and Sophia emerged with Dr. Wright, and a younger woman Ethan presumed was Ms. Ramirez, the child advocate. His daughter looked tired but not distressed. "We're finished for today," Dr. Wright informed him. Sophia did very well. After saying goodbye to the assessment team, Ethan and Sophia headed home. In the car, he carefully asked, "How did it go, sweetheart?" Sophia stared out the window. "They asked a lot of questions about Mommy Vanessa. Was that hard to talk about?" She nodded. "I told them about the closet." Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What closet, Soph?" "The one in my bathroom. When I was really bad, Mommy Vanessa would put me in there." Her voice became small. "It's dark in there and there's no handle on the inside." Another revelation, another horror Ethan hadn't known about. The bathroom closet in Sophia's suite was little more than a storage space for towels and supplies, without light or ventilation. "How long would she leave you there?" Sophia shrugged, a gesture that broke Ethan's heart. "Sometimes until you came home, but you were gone a lot." The guilt was crushing. While he'd been building his empire, attending conferences, closing deals, his daughter had been locked in dark closets, starving and terrified. "I'm so sorry, Sophia. I should have been there. Dr. Mira says it wasn't your fault. Mommy Vanessa was good at keeping secrets out of the mouths of babes." Ethan reached over and squeezed his daughter's hand, marveling at her resilience. That evening, after Sophia was asleep, Ethan called Marcus. "What did you find?" "Something big," Marcus replied. "Remember how we thought it was strange that Vanessa seemed to target Sophia specifically? I've been digging into her past, and there's a pattern. Marcus explained that before meeting Ethan, Vanessa had been briefly engaged to another wealthy executive, a widower with a young son. The engagement ended abruptly, and the record shows they signed an NDA with a substantial settlement. I managed to track down their former nanny, who wasn't covered by the agreement. According to her, Vanessa exhibited similar behavior toward the boy: food restriction, isolation, emotional abuse. The father discovered it and immediately ended the relationship. Why wouldn't he press charges? Ethan demanded. Same reason many don't: to protect his son from a public spectacle. The NDA bought the boy's privacy and required Vanessa to seek psychological help, which she clearly never did, Ethan said grimly. Can this nanny testify? No, she's willing. I've already put her in touch with Patricia. The next morning, Ethan received an unexpected call from Judge Morales' office, requesting his immediate presence at the courthouse. When he arrived, Patricia was waiting with a concerned expression. Vanessa's team has filed a motion claiming you're interfering with the assessment process by allegedly coaching Sophia and investigating Vanessa's past in violation of the judge's orders. Inside the judge's chambers, Blackwell and Vanessa were already seated. Vanessa had perfected her role as the wronged stepmother, dressed modestly with an expression of pained concern. Judge Morales got straight to the point. Mr. Blackwell has brought serious allegations of assessment interference. Mr. Parker, do you wish to respond? Before Ethan could speak, Patricia intervened. Your Honor, these claims are without merit. Mr. Parker has fully complied with the court's orders. As for the investigation into Mrs. Parker's past, it was conducted independently by Quantum Sphere's security team as part of standard protocol when a former employee attempts unauthorized access to company servers. She produced documentation showing attempts from Vanessa's devices to access sensitive company files, attempts that predated the custody dispute. Furthermore, Patricia continued, this investigation revealed a highly relevant pattern of behavior that bears directly on Mrs. Parker's fitness as a guardian. Judge Morales listened as Patricia outlined the previous engagement and the allegations from the former nanny. Blackwell objected strenuously, arguing that unsubstantiated claims from years ago were prejudicial and irrelevant. The judge silenced him with a raised hand. Mr. Blackwell, evidence of a pattern of behavior is absolutely relevant in child welfare cases. I'm denying your motion and allowing this testimony to be included in the assessment. Vanessa's mask of composure slipped momentarily, revealing a flash of cold fury before she recovered. However, Judge Morales continued, addressing Ethan, I am concerned about the potential trauma to Sophia from prolonged legal proceedings. The assessment team has requested an additional interview with both parties together, along with supervised interaction sessions between Sophia and each parent. These will be scheduled immediately. As they left the courthouse, Ethan noticed Vanessa speaking intensely with a woman he didn't recognize. Patricia followed his gaze. That's Diane Foster, a journalist who's been particularly sympathetic to Vanessa's version of events. Be prepared for another hit piece. Sure enough, by evening, a new article appeared online. Tech billionaire digs into estranged wife's past in desperate custody grab. The piece portrayed Ethan as obsessively using his company's resources to harass Vanessa, painting her previous relationship as a normal breakup that Ethan was now weaponizing. They're spinning everything, Ethan said in frustration during a late call with Patricia. No matter what evidence we present, Blackwell finds a way to twist it. That's why the supervised interaction sessions are crucial, Patricia replied. Vanessa can manipulate the media, and even some experts, but sustained observation of how she actually interacts with Sophia will reveal the truth. The first supervised session was scheduled for the following week. Ethan went first, spending 2 hours with Sophia under the watchful eyes of Dr. Wright and her team. They played board games, worked on a puzzle, and talked about Sophia's recent science project on butterflies. Despite the artificial environment, their easy rapport and Sophia's obvious comfort with him were evident. Vanessa's session followed immediately after. Ethan was required to leave the building, but received a full report that evening. According to the observers, Vanessa had arrived with expensive gifts and behaved affectionately toward Sophia, but the child remained tense and withdrawn throughout the interaction. When Vanessa attempted to help Sophia with a drawing, the girl flinched at her touch, a reaction duly noted in the report. "It's a start," Patricia said when they discussed the observations. "But Vanessa will claim Sophia's reaction was due to your influence, not genuine fear. So what's our next move?" The assessment team has requested financial records showing all expenditures related to Sophia over the past 3 years. They're also interviewing the court-appointed guardian who's been monitoring Sophia's care with you. And after that, Patricia's expression was cautious but hopeful. Then they make their recommendation to the court. "Based on what I've seen so far, I believe it will be in our favor." That night, as Ethan tucked Sophia into bed, she asked a question that caught him off guard. "Daddy, if you win, will Mommy Vanessa go away forever?" The simplicity of the question belied its complexity. How to explain the legal system to a 7-year-old? How to promise protection without promising what he couldn't guarantee? "I'm doing everything I can to make sure you're safe," he said carefully. "The people at the court are helping us figure out what's best for you." Sophia considered this, her small face serious in the soft lamplight. "I told the nice doctor about being hungry all the time, and about the closet, and how Mommy Vanessa said you didn't want me anymore." Her voice quavered slightly. "Was that okay?" Ethan gathered her close, his heart breaking anew. "That was exactly right, Soph. You just keep telling the truth. That's all you need to do." As his daughter drifted to sleep, Ethan remained beside her, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. The assessment process was working, slowly bringing the truth to light. But he couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa had more moves to play, that the worst was yet to come. Outside, Seattle's perpetual rain tapped against the windows, a reminder that some storms had to be weathered before the clearing could begin. The courtroom fell silent as Angela Martinez concluded her testimony. For the past hour, she had detailed specific instances of Vanessa's cruelty towards Sophia, the accidental spills of water on the child's bed, followed by humiliating punishments, the elaborate meals prepared for guests while Sophia received only plain rice, the child's belongings mysteriously disappearing when she misbehaved. "And why didn't you report these incidents sooner, Ms. Martinez?" Patricia asked, her voice gentle but firm. Angela looked down, shame evident in her expression. "Mrs. Parker threatened me. She knew my mother needed specialized care I couldn't afford without this job. She said she'd ensure I never worked in another household in Seattle again." She raised her eyes, meeting Ethan's gaze across the courtroom. "I should have been braver. I'm so sorry." Judge Morales had allowed this unusual mid-assessment testimony due to Angela's imminent relocation abroad. Lawrence Blackwell rose for cross-examination, his expensive suit and commanding presence designed to intimidate. "Ms. Martinez, isn't it true that you were terminated for theft?" "No, sir. I never stole anything from the Parker household." Blackwell produced a document. "Yet here's a police report filed by Mrs. Parker alleging the disappearance of jewelry shortly before your dismissal." "Objection," Patricia interrupted. The witness was never charged with any crime, and the report in question was withdrawn by Mrs. Parker herself 2 days after filing. "Sustained," Judge Morales ruled. "Mr. Blackwell, confine your questions to relevant matters." Blackwell shifted tactics. "Ms. Martinez, you testified that Mrs. Parker restricted Sophia's food intake. Isn't it possible you misinterpreted normal parental concern about childhood nutrition? Normal concern doesn't involve watching a child eat plain oatmeal while everyone else has pancakes," Angela replied evenly. "Normal concern doesn't mean locking the refrigerator when the father is traveling. Normal concern doesn't involve telling a child she doesn't deserve water because she spoke without permission." By the time Angela stepped down, her testimony had clearly affected everyone in the courtroom, everyone except Vanessa, whose composed expression never faltered. She leaned occasionally to whisper to Blackwell, her perfect posture and demure outfit projecting the image of a wrongfully accused Madonna. The court recessed briefly before the next witness, Dr. Meera Patel, Sophia's therapist. As people filed out, Ethan remained seated, reviewing notes with Patricia. Angela was compelling, Patricia observed. Her testimony corroborates the physical evidence perfectly. But is it enough? Ethan asked, watching Vanessa charm a court clerk across the room. She's so convincing in her role. That's why Dr. Patel's testimony is crucial. As a neutral expert who spent significant time with Sophia, her professional assessment carries substantial weight. When proceedings resumed, Dr. Patel took the stand. With her credentials established, she began describing her work with Sophia over the past months. In my professional opinion, Sophia exhibits clear symptoms of psychological trauma, consistent with prolonged emotional and physical neglect. Her fear responses, hypervigilance around food and specific anxiety, triggers align with the reported abuse patterns. Could these symptoms have other causes? Patricia asked. While children may exhibit similar behaviors for various reasons, Sophia's specific trauma narratives directly correspond to the documented incidents. For example, her extreme anxiety about closed doors correlates with reports of being locked in rooms as punishment. Her hoarding of food items relates directly to food being withheld. Blackwell's cross-examination was aggressive. Dr. Patel, isn't it true that children often fabricate or embellish stories to please authority figures? Couldn't Sophia be telling you what she thinks her father wants to hear? Dr. Patel remained unruffled. Children Sophia's age typically lack the cognitive sophistication to maintain consistent fabricated narratives over multiple sessions. The specific details and emotional congruence of Sophia's accounts strongly suggest authenticity. Furthermore, her physical symptoms, the documented weight loss, delayed growth and stress-induced hair loss, cannot be fabricated. Couldn't those physical symptoms result from the stress of her parents' separation rather than alleged abuse? The medical timeline doesn't support that conclusion. Dr. Reynolds documented these symptoms prior to any separation, during periods when Mrs. Parker was Sophia's primary caregiver. As Dr. Patel continued, Ethan noticed a subtle shift in Vanessa's demeanor. The composed mask slipped momentarily, revealing flashes of anger when particularly damning testimony was presented. She whispered more urgently to Blackwell, who appeared increasingly frustrated. The courtroom dynamic changed dramatically with the next witness, Brian Thompson, the 7-year-old son of Craig Thompson, Vanessa's former fiancé. Now 9, the boy had been deemed mature enough to testify with appropriate accommodations. He appeared via video link, a child advocate beside him. "Brian, do you remember when Vanessa lived with you and your dad?" Patricia asked gently. The boy nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Can you tell us what it was like when your dad wasn't home?" Brian's testimony, delivered in the straightforward manner of children, was devastating. He described being denied meals, being locked in his room, having favorite toys disappear as punishment, patterns eerily similar to Sophia's experiences. She said, "If I told my dad, he wouldn't believe me because grown-ups always stick together," Brian concluded. "She said he'd send me to boarding school if he knew how bad I was." Across the courtroom, Vanessa's composure finally shattered. "He's lying," she burst out, rising from her seat. "That little brat is making this up." "Mrs. Parker," Judge Morales warned sharply, "control yourself or you'll be removed from this courtroom." Blackwell placed a restraining hand on Vanessa's arm, but the damage was done. Her outburst had revealed a glimpse of what lay beneath the carefully constructed facade. The testimony continued, with Craig Thompson confirming his son's accounts. He described discovering Vanessa, slapping his son for spilling juice, leading to their immediate breakup and subsequent non-disclosure agreement. "I wanted to protect my son from publicity," he explained. "I regret not reporting her behavior to authorities. Perhaps it could have prevented what happened to Sophia." By day's end, the assessment team had heard from 12 witnesses, reviewed medical reports, security footage, financial records, and psychological evaluations. Judge Morales addressed both parties before adjourning. The assessment team will now prepare their final report and recommendations. We will reconvene in 1 week for their presentation. Until then, the current custody arrangement remains in effect. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, hungry for statements. Ethan declined to comment, following Patricia's advice to maintain dignity and focus on Sophia's privacy. Vanessa, however, gave an emotional interview, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "They're trying to destroy me with lies," she told the cameras. "Ethan can't accept that our marriage is over, so he's using his money and power to punish me by taking away the child I love as my own. I only pray the court sees through these fabricated allegations." Back at home, Ethan found Sophia and her caregiver working on a science project. Seeing his daughter focused and relaxed, engaged in normal childhood activities, reaffirmed everything he was fighting for. That evening, after Sophia was asleep, Marcus called with unsettling news. "There's been another attempt to access your personal servers," he reported. "More sophisticated this time. They were specifically targeting your communications with Dr. Patel." "Patient confidentiality would make those inadmissible," Ethan pointed out. "True, but they're desperate. They're also digging into Dr. Patel's background, looking for anything to discredit her testimony." Ethan sighed, weariness settling over him like a physical weight. "Will this ever end, Marcus?" "The assessment report comes out next week. Based on today's testimony, I'd say Vanessa's running out of options." But Vanessa had one more card to play. The following morning, as Ethan prepared to take Sophia to her weekly therapy session, he received an urgent call from Patricia. "Turn on Channel 8 News now." The broadcast showed Vanessa outside a police station, appearing shaken and vulnerable. The reporter's voiceover explained that Mrs. Parker had just filed a police report alleging Ethan had fabricated evidence against her, including manipulating security footage and coercing witnesses. "This is a desperate attempt to silence me," Vanessa told the reporter tearfully. "My husband has used his technological expertise and financial influence to create false evidence. I've remained silent too long, afraid of his power and connections. But I have to speak out for Sophia's sake." The report continued with an interview featuring a former Quantum Sphere employee who claimed the company culture encouraged winning at all costs, and that Parker was known for ruthlessly eliminating obstacles. "She's trying to create reasonable doubt before the assessment report," Patricia explained. "Classic Blackwell strategy. When the evidence is against you, attack the evidence itself." "Can the police actually investigate these claims?" Ethan asked, stunned by the latest escalation. "They'll have to look into it, but there's nothing to find. The security footage was authenticated by independent experts, and the witness testimony is consistent across multiple unrelated parties. Still, the damage was done." By afternoon, the allegation had spread across multiple news outlets, with commentators debating whether a tech billionaire could manipulate digital evidence to frame his wife. Hashtags supporting Vanessa trended on social media, with many portraying her as a victim of wealth and privilege. The stress took its toll on Sophia. That night, she experienced her first panic attack in weeks, waking screaming from a nightmare that Vanessa was taking her away. "She can't get you," Ethan assured her, holding her trembling body close. "I promise." But privately, he wondered if that was a promise he could keep. The justice system was designed to be impartial, but it wasn't immune to influence and manipulation. What if the assessment team was swayed by the public narrative? What if the carefully constructed case against Vanessa collapsed under the weight of her counter-allegations? The day before the assessment report was due, Ethan received an unexpected visitor at home. Dr. Eleanor Wright, the lead psychologist from the assessment team, had requested a brief, unofficial meeting. "This is highly irregular," Patricia warned when Ethan called for advice. "Assessment team members don't typically meet with parties outside formal proceedings." "She said it concerns Sophia's immediate welfare," Ethan explained. "I can't refuse if it might help Sophia." Dr. Wright arrived promptly, declining refreshments and getting straight to the point. "Mr. Parker, I want to be clear that I'm not here to discuss the assessment findings. Those will be presented to the court tomorrow as scheduled." "I understand," Ethan replied, puzzled by her presence. "I'm here because something occurred during our final interview with Mrs. Parker yesterday that raises immediate concerns." Dr. Wright's professional demeanor couldn't entirely mask her discomfort. During what she believed was a break in recording, Mrs. Parker made certain statements regarding her intentions toward Sophia should she regain custody. A chill ran through Ethan. "What kind of statements?" "I can't quote directly, but they indicated an intent to remove Sophia from the state immediately, regardless of court orders." Dr. Wright met his eyes directly. "She specifically mentioned having arrangements in place to take Sophia to a property outside U.S. jurisdiction. She's planning to flee with my daughter." Ethan's voice rose in alarm. I've already informed Judge Morales and filed an emergency addendum to our report. The court will likely issue preventative measures tomorrow. Dr. Wright rose to leave. I shouldn't have come personally, but as a child welfare professional, I couldn't in good conscience wait until tomorrow. And sure, Sophia remains in secure surroundings until the hearing. After she departed, Ethan immediately called Marcus and Patricia, instituting emergency security protocols around the house. Within hours, the property was monitored by additional guards, all entry points secured, and Sophia's location continuously tracked through a small device in her favorite stuffed animal. That night, as a precaution, Ethan slept in Sophia's room, watching over his daughter, while Seattle's rain tapped against the windows like impatient fingers. Tomorrow would bring the assessment team's verdict and potentially end this nightmare once and for all. But as he drifted to sleep in the chair beside Sophia's bed, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa's final desperate move was yet to come. The courthouse was packed for the final hearing. News of Vanessa's alleged escape plan had leaked, transforming an already high-profile case into a media sensation. Security had been doubled, with officers stationed at every entrance and exit. Ethan sat rigidly beside Patricia, hyper-aware of every movement in the courtroom. Sophia was safely at home with both her regular caregiver and an additional security detail. After Dr. Wright's warning, he wasn't taking any chances. Across the aisle, Vanessa appeared unusually subdued. Her typical courtroom attire, conservative dresses in soft pastels, had been replaced by a severe black suit. Lawrence Blackwell whispered continually in her ear, his expression tense. "Something's off," Patricia murmured. "Blackwell looks worried." Before Ethan could respond, Judge Morales entered and the courtroom rose. After preliminaries, she addressed the assessment team. "Dr. Wright, the court is ready to receive your findings." Dr. Wright approached the bench, accompanied by two colleagues. She presented a bound report, then turned to address the court. "Your Honor, after extensive evaluation, including interviews, home assessments, psychological testing, and review of all submitted evidence, our team has reached unanimous conclusions regarding custody of Sophia Parker." The courtroom held its collective breath as Dr. Wright continued. "We find compelling evidence that Sophia Parker was subjected to systematic emotional and physical neglect while in the care of Vanessa Parker. The documented patterns of food restriction, isolation, psychological manipulation, and medical neglect constitute child abuse under Washington state guidelines." Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Ethan's eyes remained fixed on Vanessa, who sat unnaturally still, her face a mask of control. "The team recommends immediate termination of all unsupervised contact between Vanessa Parker and the minor child. We find that Ethan Parker has demonstrated appropriate parenting capabilities and recommend he retain full legal and physical custody." Relief flooded through Ethan so intensely he nearly missed Dr. Wright's next statement. "Furthermore, given evidence of Mrs. Parker's expressed intent to remove the child from the jurisdiction, we recommend immediate suspension of all visitation rights pending criminal investigation of the documented abuse." At this, Vanessa finally reacted. She clutched Blackwell's arm, whispering urgently. The attorney stood, interrupting Dr. Wright. "Your Honor, we strongly object to these findings, which are clearly influenced by Mr. Parker's manipulation of evidence and witnesses. We request an independent secondary evaluation." Judge Morales frowned. "Mr. Blackwell, you will wait your turn. Dr. Wright has the floor." "My apologies, Your Honor," Blackwell persisted. "But we have new evidence directly relevant to Dr. Wright's testimony." Vanessa tugged at his sleeve, seemingly trying to restrain him, but Blackwell shook her off. The interaction struck Ethan as odd. Vanessa had never hesitated to challenge the proceedings before. Judge Morales sighed. "Present your evidence briefly, Mr. Blackwell, but be advised this interruption tests the court's patience." Blackwell approached the bench with a file. "Your Honor, we have obtained records indicating that Dr. Wright's brother received substantial consulting fees from a subsidiary of Quantum Sphere Technologies 3 years ago. This previously undisclosed conflict of interest compromises the entire assessment." Dr. Wright appeared genuinely shocked. "Your Honor, I have no brother." The courtroom erupted in confused murmurs. Judge Morales examined the documents, then handed them to her clerk. These appear to be falsified records. Mr. Blackwell, are you submitting fraudulent evidence to this court? Blackwell blanched. I was provided these documents by my client, Your Honor. If they're indeed falsified, I had no knowledge. Don't you dare, Vanessa hissed, loud enough for nearby attendees to hear. You knew exactly what you were doing. The unexpected public conflict between attorney and client stunned the courtroom into silence. Blackwell straightened his tie, visibly regaining composure. Your Honor, I request a brief recess to confer with my client. Denied, Judge Morales said flatly. Dr. Wright will complete her presentation, after which both parties will have opportunity to respond. As Dr. Wright detailed the assessment team's specific findings, including heartbreaking accounts of Sophia's experiences and recommendations for her continued therapy, Ethan noticed Vanessa becoming increasingly agitated. She scribbled notes, passed them to Blackwell, and fidgeted in her seat. When the assessment presentation concluded, Patricia rose for Ethan's response. Your Honor, we accept the assessment team's findings in full and stand ready to implement all recommendations for Sophia's continued care and recovery. Judge Morales nodded, then addressed Vanessa's team. Mr. Blackwell, the attorney stood reluctantly. Your Honor, in light of the assessment findings, my client wishes to address the court directly. A ripple of surprise moved through the courtroom. Direct addresses from parties in family court proceedings were unusual, particularly at this stage. Judge Morales considered the request. Very well, but I caution Mrs. Parker to confine her remarks to matters directly relevant to the child's welfare. Vanessa approached the podium with measured steps. Gone was the demure, tearful woman who had played the wronged stepmother so convincingly. Her posture was rigid, her eyes cold and calculating as they swept across the courtroom before settling on Ethan. For 3 years, she began, her voice steady, I lived in the shadow of a man whose public persona bears little resemblance to his private reality. Ethan Parker, celebrated genius and visionary, couldn't see what was happening in his own home because he chose not to look. Ethan tensed, prepared for another attack on his character or parenting. What came instead left him speechless. The assessment team is correct in their findings, Vanessa continued, a collective gasp rising from the gallery. Sophia was neglected and mistreated in our home. What they failed to identify correctly is the responsible party. She turned to face Judge Morales directly. It wasn't Ethan who locked Sophia in closets or denied her food. It wasn't Ethan who belittled and terrorized her. Her voice dropped to a near whisper that somehow carried throughout the silent courtroom. It was me. The admission stunned everyone present. Blackwell half rose from his seat, then sank back, defeated. Patricia gripped Ethan's arm in warning, preventing him from responding. I married Ethan Parker for his wealth and status, Vanessa continued, her voice devoid of emotion. I never wanted to be a mother, especially not to another woman's child. Sophia was a reminder of everything I wasn't. The biological connection to Ethan I could never have, the embodiment of his past happiness. She spoke mechanically now, as if reciting a prepared statement. I resented her presence in what should have been my perfect life. When Ethan was home, I played the devoted stepmother. When he wasn't, she paused, something finally cracking in her composure. When he wasn't, I made sure Sophia understood her place. The courtroom remained in stunned silence as Vanessa described, with clinical detachment, the systematic abuse she'd inflicted on Sophia, punishment rituals disguised as discipline, calculated cruelties designed to break the child's spirit without leaving visible evidence. I told her that her father didn't really want her, that he stayed away because she was a disappointment. I made her believe she was unworthy of love. Vanessa's voice remained eerily calm. And I was careful, so very careful to maintain the perfect image everyone expected. Judge Morales finally found her voice. Mrs. Parker, are you confessing to child abuse in open court? I'm acknowledging reality, Your Honor. This charade has become untenable. Ethan could barely process what was happening. After months of vehement denials, after orchestrating a sophisticated campaign to discredit him and retain access to Sophia, Vanessa was suddenly confessing everything. Mrs. Parker, Judge Morales said cautiously, you understand that these statements have serious legal implications beyond this custody case? Perfectly, Vanessa replied. I also understand that the evidence against me is overwhelming. The assessment team has exposed what I worked so hard to hide. Continuing to fight is pointless. She turned to Ethan, meeting his gaze directly for the first time. You won, Ethan. You have your company, your billions, your precious daughter. You get to be the hero who saved her from the wicked stepmother. Congratulations. The bitterness in her voice revealed the truth. This wasn't remorse or acceptance. This was Vanessa recognizing defeat and choosing to control the narrative one final time. By confessing on her terms, she was denying Ethan the satisfaction of exposing her through the legal process. Judge Morales recovered from her surprise and addressed the courtroom. In light of these extraordinary statements, this court will take a 30-minute recess. Mrs. Parker, you are not to leave the courthouse. Bailiff, please ensure Mrs. Parker remains in the building. As the judge exited, the courtroom erupted in frenzied whispers. Patricia turned to Ethan, her expression a mixture of shock and cautious victory. I've never seen anything like this in 20 years of practice, she said. She must have realized the criminal implications of the assessment findings and decided to take control of the narrative. Is it over? Ethan asked, still struggling to process Vanessa's confession. The custody battle? Yes, the court will grant you full custody with no visitation rights for Vanessa. But criminal proceedings will follow. Sophia may still need to testify. The thought of his daughter facing more questioning, more exposure to the trauma she'd endured, made Ethan's stomach clench. There has to be a way to spare her that. With Vanessa's confession on record, it may not be necessary. I'll speak with the prosecutor. Patricia gathered her notes. You should call home, check on Sophia. Ethan stepped into the hallway, phone in hand, still dazed by the sudden shift in circumstances. As he waited for the caregiver to answer, he noticed Lawrence Blackwell emerging from a conference room, looking shaken. Their eyes met briefly across the crowded corridor. The attorney gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod, acknowledgement of defeat perhaps, or something more complex. Then he disappeared into the crowd. When court reconvened, Judge Morales wasted no time delivering her ruling. Based on the assessment team's findings and Mrs. Parker's own admission, this court grants full legal and physical custody of Sophia Parker to her father, Ethan Parker. Mrs. Parker shall have no contact with the minor child, supervised or otherwise. She turned to address Vanessa directly. Additionally, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. Bailiff, please take Mrs. Parker into custody pending formal charges. As two officers approached Vanessa, she remained eerily composed, surrendering her designer handbag and removing her jewelry with practiced movements. Only as they led her from the courtroom did she glance back at Ethan, her eyes conveying a message that chilled him despite his victory. This isn't truly over. The following days passed in a blur. Criminal charges were filed against Vanessa, multiple counts of child endangerment, neglect, and abuse. With her confession on record and the mountain of evidence compiled during the custody case, prosecutors anticipated a straightforward conviction. Ethan focused on Sophia, shielding her from media coverage and beginning the process of rebuilding their life together. He enlisted Dr. Patel's help in explaining the court's decision to his daughter in age-appropriate terms. Does this mean Mommy Vanessa isn't coming back? Sophia asked during one of their talks, her small face serious. That's right, Ethan confirmed gently. The judge decided that you'll live with me from now on. Forever and ever. You promise? Forever and ever, he vowed, holding her close. Nothing will ever separate us again. A week after the final hearing, Ethan returned to Quantum Sphere headquarters for the first time in months. The board had been remarkably patient given the circumstances, but the postponed Nextech merger couldn't wait indefinitely. As he stood before the executive team, Ethan felt like a different person from the driven CEO who had once prioritized business above all else. The merger will proceed, he announced to visible relief around the conference table, but with modified terms. I'll remain as chairman of the board, but I'm stepping down as CEO effective immediately. The shocked expressions of his executives mirrored their confusion. Ethan Parker was Quantum Sphere. His vision, his leadership had built the company from nothing. My daughter needs me present in her life, he explained simply, not just financially but emotionally available. I can't do that while running daily operations. Later, as Ethan cleared personal items from his office, Marcus joined him. The board's in shock, his friend reported. Davis is already campaigning for the CEO position. He'd be good, Ethan acknowledged. The company will thrive without me micromanaging every decision. Marcus studied him thoughtfully. No regrets. Ethan considered the question, remembering Sophia's face that morning as they had breakfast together. The way her eyes now met his without fear, the growing confidence in her smile. None, he said firmly. I built Quantum Sphere because I wanted to change the world. But the world that matters most to me now is Sophia's. That evening, father and daughter sat on their home's expansive deck, watching Seattle's skyline transform as dusk settled over the city. Sophia was explaining the life cycle of monarch butterflies, a subject that had captivated her since a recent school project. They start as tiny eggs, she said, her voice animated in a way Ethan had almost forgotten was possible. Then they become caterpillars and eat lots and lots of leaves. They must get very full, Ethan remarked, smiling at her enthusiasm. They do. Then they make a chrysalis and stay inside while they change. Her expression grew thoughtful. It's like they're hiding while they get better. The innocent observation struck Ethan with unexpected force. Like those butterflies, his daughter had been enclosed in her own kind of chrysalis, withdrawn, protected, surviving. Now she was slowly emerging, transformed but still fragile. And what happens after the chrysalis? He asked softly. Sophia beamed. They become butterflies and fly away. Ms. Jenkins says they're completely different creatures from what they started as. Do you think people can change like that too? She considered this with the serious contemplation only children can bring to philosophical questions. I think so. You changed. You used to be gone all the time, but now you're here. The simple truth, delivered without accusation, filled Ethan with equal parts gratitude and regret. I'll always be here from now on, Soph, that's a promise. As the last light faded from the sky, Ethan made a decision. The mansion held too many difficult memories for both of them. They needed a fresh start in a new home, one without shadows lurking in closets or ghosts of painful moments. But more than that, they needed purpose beyond just healing. Throughout the custody battle, Ethan had encountered countless families facing similar situations without his resources or connections. Children trapped in abusive homes, parents struggling to navigate complex legal systems, victims silenced by fear or lack of support. The seed of an idea took root as Sophia drifted to sleep against his shoulder. Tomorrow he would begin researching how to establish a foundation, one dedicated to supporting victims of child abuse and helping families rebuild after trauma. He would name it after Sophia's mother, Catherine, whose memory deserved to be honored in a meaningful way. As Seattle's lights reflected in the calm waters of the Sound, Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced in months: hope. The journey ahead would not be easy. Recovery rarely followed a straight path, but for the first time he truly believed they would find their way through the darkness together. Carrying his sleeping daughter to her room, Ethan whispered a promise. We're going to be okay, Soph, better than okay. We're going to help other kids like you. We're going to make something good come from all of this. And somewhere in her dreams, Sophia smiled. 2 years later, morning sunlight streamed through the windows of the Parker Lakeside home, a modern yet comfortable structure nestled among tall pines on the shores of Lake Sammamish. The house was nothing like the imposing mansion they'd left behind. More modest in size, though still luxurious, designed with warmth and security rather than ostentation. In the open kitchen, Sophia, now 9, carefully arranged blueberries in a perfect circle atop her pancakes. Her blonde hair, longer now and healthier, was pulled back in a neat braid. The hollowness that had once haunted her small face had been replaced by the healthy roundness of childhood, her blue eyes bright with an intelligence and confidence that grew stronger each day. Dad, can Emily come over after the foundation event? She asked, looking up as Ethan entered the kitchen. We want to work on our science fair project. Of course, Ethan replied, pouring himself coffee. What's the project about again? The psychological effects of color on mood and concentration, Sophia explained with the seriousness of a seasoned researcher. We're testing whether different colored lighting affects how quickly people can solve puzzles. Ethan smiled, continuously amazed by his daughter's resilience and growth. 2 years of consistent therapy with Dr. Patel, a stable routine, and the unwavering security of knowing she was loved unconditionally had transformed Sophia. The nightmares still came occasionally, and certain triggers could still provoke anxiety, but those episodes were increasingly rare. Sounds impressive. Need any help setting up the experiment? So maybe with the lights. Emily's mom is helping too. She's a psychologist, remember? Ethan nodded, checking the time. We should leave in 30 minutes. The opening ceremony starts at 10. Today marked the official launch of the Catherine Parker Foundation for Child Protection and Family Healing. After months of planning and organization, the foundation would begin its work supporting families affected by child abuse, funding specialized therapy programs, and advocating for improved child protection policies. Sophia finished her breakfast and disappeared to get ready. Returning in a simple blue dress she'd chosen herself for the occasion. Watching her confidently select her own clothing, express her preferences, and move through the world with growing assurance never failed to fill Ethan with profound gratitude. "You look beautiful, Soph," he said, as they headed to the car. "Just like your mom." Sophia smiled at the comparison. In the past year, Ethan had made a conscious effort to share more stories and photos of Catherine, ensuring her memory remained alive for their daughter. The walls of their new home displayed family pictures from happier times, no longer hidden away as they had been during Vanessa's reign. The drive to Seattle passed with Sophia chattering about school, friends, and her growing collection of science books. Her academic progress had been remarkable, her teachers consistently impressed by both her intelligence and her emotional maturity. "Do you think a lot of people will come today?" she asked as they approached the downtown building that housed the foundation's headquarters. "I think so," Ethan replied. The response to the invitations was strong. He didn't mention the media interest. Since Vanessa's high-profile trial and conviction 18 months earlier, public attention to child abuse issues had intensified. The case had sparked national conversations about recognizing abuse across socio-economic boundaries and the particular vulnerability of children in blended families. Vanessa had ultimately been sentenced to 3 years in prison after pleading guilty to reduced charges. The plea agreement had spared Sophia from testifying, a small mercy in a process that had already demanded too much from a child. The foundation's modern glass and steel building came into view, its lobby already bustling with early arrivals. Staff members greeted Ethan and Sophia warmly as they entered through a private entrance, escorting them to a preparation room where the day's speakers were gathering. Among them was Angela Martinez, now the foundation's Director of Family Support Services. After her courageous testimony during the custody case, Ethan had stayed in touch, eventually offering her a position when the foundation took shape. "The auditorium is nearly full," she reported. "And Dr. Reynolds just arrived. She'll be joining the medical advisory panel presentation after your opening remarks." Ethan nodded, scanning the room. "Is Marcus here yet?" "In the security office, doing a final check of the systems." Angela smiled down at Sophia. "Are you ready for your big moment?" The girl nodded solemnly. Though normally shy about public speaking, Sophia had insisted on participating in the opening ceremony, wanting to help other children who had experienced what she had. As the clock approached 10, they moved toward the auditorium. Through the doors, Ethan could see hundreds of attendees, medical professionals, social workers, legal experts, donors, and families who had already benefited from the foundation's preliminary work. "Nervous?" he asked Sophia, feeling her small hand tighten in his. "A little," she admitted. "But Dr. Mira says being nervous just means you care about doing something important." The wisdom in her response reminded Ethan yet again how much his daughter had grown. The trembling, fearful child he'd discovered searching for food in the garbage was now developing into a thoughtful, compassionate young person, capable of transforming her painful experiences into purpose. The ceremony began with a welcome from the Foundation's executive director, followed by brief remarks from a renowned child welfare expert. Then it was Ethan's turn to speak. He approached the podium, acutely aware of how different this moment was from the countless corporate presentations he'd given throughout his career. This wasn't about market share or technological innovation. This was about changing lives in the most fundamental way. 2 years ago, he began, I discovered my daughter searching through trash for food in our own home. That moment changed everything. My priorities, my understanding of what truly matters, the very direction of my life. The audience was silent. Captivated by the personal story behind the headline-making case many had followed in the media. I learned painful lessons through that experience. I learned that wealth and privilege don't protect children from abuse. I learned that appearances can mask terrible suffering. Most importantly, I learned that being a provider isn't the same as being a parent. My success meant nothing while my daughter was being harmed under my own roof. Ethan continued, explaining how the foundation would work on multiple fronts: direct support for families in crisis, training for professionals to better recognize signs of abuse, legal advocacy for child protection reforms, and specialized therapeutic services for young survivors. The Catherine Parker Foundation exists because too many children suffer in silence, he concluded. Because too many parents don't know where to turn for help. Because systems meant to protect our most vulnerable sometimes fail. And because every child deserves what my daughter now has: safety, support, and the chance to heal. He turned towards Sophia, who waited at the side of the stage. And now I'd like to introduce the true inspiration behind everything we do, my daughter Sophia. The audience applauded warmly as Sophia approached the microphone, looking small but determined. Ethan adjusted it to her height, giving her an encouraging nod before stepping aside. Hello, she began, her voice clear despite her nervousness. My name is Sophia and I'm 9 years old. 2 years ago I was very scared all the time. I didn't have enough food and I was locked in my room a lot. I thought it was my fault and that nobody would believe me if I told. The directness of her words created a powerful hush across the auditorium. There was no artifice in her delivery, just the simple truth of a child's experience. My dad found out what was happening and he helped me get safe. Now I have doctors and therapists who help me feel better when I remember scary things. I have friends and I can eat whenever I'm hungry. She paused, looking out at the audience with surprising composure. But some kids don't have anyone to help them. That's why we made this foundation, so every kid can be safe and have help to feel better. Sophia glanced at her note cards before continuing with growing confidence. If you're a kid and someone is hurting you, it's not your fault. Keep telling adults until someone believes you. And if you're a grown-up, please listen when kids try to tell you important things. She stepped back from the microphone, visibly relieved to have completed her short speech. The audience rose in a standing ovation, many wiping away tears at the powerful simplicity of her message. Ethan embraced his daughter, overwhelmed with pride. You did amazing, Soph. The remainder of the ceremony included presentations from the Foundation's various departments, testimonials from families already assisted by their pilot programs, and the formal ribbon cutting for the building's new therapeutic center for children. As guests mingled during the reception afterward, Ethan watched Sophia confidently speaking with a younger girl who had recently been placed with foster parents after removal from an abusive home. The easy compassion with which his daughter connected with the child spoke volumes about her healing journey. She's quite remarkable, observed Dr. Meera Patel, joining Ethan. Her capacity for empathy, especially after what she endured, is extraordinary. She gets that from her mother, Ethan replied softly. Catherine had that same quality, the ability to truly see others. Dr. Patel smiled. Perhaps, but she also learned resilience from you, Ethan. Children model what they observe. Your determination to protect her, your willingness to completely reorganize your life priorities, these actions taught Sophia powerful lessons about what truly matters. Across the room, Marcus Chen approached with an older gentleman Ethan recognized as Judge Richard Hamilton, who had presided over several key child welfare cases in King County. Mr. Parker, the judge said, shaking Ethan's hand firmly, I wanted to personally congratulate you on this initiative. In 30 years on the bench, I've seen countless families destroyed by abuse. Resources like this foundation can truly change outcomes. That's our hope, Ethan acknowledged. We're starting locally, but our goal is to develop programs that can be implemented nationally. Judge Hamilton nodded approvingly. Your daughter's speech was particularly moving. How is she doing? Better every day, Ethan replied. watching Sophia now chatting animatedly with Emily, her best friend from school who had just arrived. She's remarkably resilient. Children often are when given the right support, the judge observed, though they should never have to be. By late afternoon, as the event wound down, Ethan found himself momentarily alone on the building's rooftop garden. The Seattle skyline stretched before him, the familiar towers of quantum sphere technologies visible in the distance. He rarely visited company headquarters these days. His role as chairman kept him connected to major decisions, but daily operations continued successfully under new leadership. The Nextech merger had eventually proceeded, creating one of the world's leading quantum computing enterprises. Once, that achievement would have defined Ethan's sense of success. Now it seemed almost incidental compared to the progress made in his daughter's healing journey and the Foundation's growing impact. "Dad?" Sophia's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Emily's mom is here. Can we go home now to work on our project?" "Of course," he said, turning from the view. "Everything wrapped up downstairs?" She nodded. "Angela says it was a big success. Over 500 people came, and lots of them signed up to volunteer or donate." They rode the elevator down together, Sophia leaning comfortably against his side. The easy physical affection between them had been hard-won, developed gradually as trust replaced fear in her experience of the world. "Dad," she said as they reached the ground floor, "do you think our foundation will really help other kids like me?" Ethan considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. "I do. Not every case, not all at once. But yes, I believe we'll make a real difference." Sophia seemed satisfied with this answer. "Good, because I don't want any kid to feel like I did before, like they don't matter or deserve to be safe." The simple wisdom in her statement reminded Ethan yet again how extraordinary his daughter was, how strong she had become through her journey from victim to survivor to advocate. As they left the building, Sophia waved to familiar staff members with the natural confidence of a child who knew she belonged, who understood her worth and value. The transformation from the frightened, malnourished little girl digging through trash was nothing short of miraculous. That evening, after Sophia and Emily had finished working on their science project and the house had quieted, Ethan sat on the deck overlooking Lake Sammamish. The gentle rhythm of water lapping against the shore provided a peaceful backdrop for reflection. The path that had brought them here had been unimaginably painful. There were moments during the custody battle when Ethan had doubted whether justice would prevail, whether Sophia would ever truly recover from the trauma she had endured. Yet here they were 2 years later. His daughter was thriving in school, developing healthy friendships, gradually reclaiming the childhood that had been temporarily stolen from her. The foundation was operational, already making tangible differences in dozens of families' lives. From the depths of that terrible night in the kitchen, the night that had shattered his world, something meaningful had emerged. Not just Sophia's personal healing, but a broader purpose that extended beyond their family to touch countless others. Through the open door, Ethan could hear Sophia's voice as she spoke on the phone with Dr. Patel, sharing her excitement about the day's events. The ease with which she now expressed herself, the confidence in her tone. These were precious gifts he would never take for granted. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Recovery wasn't a destination, but a continuing journey, with inevitable setbacks and difficult moments alongside the progress. But they would face those challenges together, father and daughter united by love and an unshakable commitment to each other. As stars appeared in the darkening sky above the lake, Ethan made a silent toast to Catherine's memory, to the foundation that now bore her name, and to the remarkable little girl who had transformed unimaginable suffering into hope, not just for herself, but for others who would follow her path to healing. In the quiet evening, with his daughter safe and thriving just inside, Ethan Parker finally found the peace that had eluded him for so long. Whatever the future held, they would face it together, stronger for having weathered the storm, and determined to help others find their way to calmer shores. Fimdar Historia. Dear listeners, we hope this journey through Ethan and Sophia's path to healing has touched your heart. Their story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, redemption and transformation are possible. For more emotional stories that explore the complexity of family relationships and human resilience, we've prepared a special playlist of equally moving narratives. Just click the link to your left. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring you unique stories that delve into life's challenges and triumphs. Don't miss our upcoming content, and please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your connection to these stories helps build our community of storytellers and listeners. We look forward to sharing another journey with you tomorrow.